Hey everybody, it's Rob here. After my recent Whirlwind Barbarian videos, I've been getting many more questions, and also other creators made a lot of content about the stuff. And I'm here to update you with some more FAQs. We're gonna be talking about the Grandfather versus Polearm meta. We're gonna be talking about the crit and vulnerable ratio again. We have new planners. There was a calculator made for crit and vulnerable. I'm gonna share all that in the description as well as the new planners. There's a boss killer variant, there's a polearm speed meta, and just in general, guys, I want to say it's so amazing to see people and content creators coming together and just figuring out our beloved Barbarian and just, you know, taking the meta to the next level and taking the class to the next level. I can't wait what's going to happen with all the stuff on PTR here tomorrow. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to be spinning and we're going to be winning. Let's get into it, guys. So we have a sheet here. And I'm going to be just talking here from the start. We're going to talk about some more general stuff that is some new learnings that are definitely true for all the builds. And then there are some more controversial topics and people have opinions about all kinds of things. And I'm just going to talk about my take and also what I did according to my testing. Right now I'm sitting at about 1.3 billion bleeds. This is 1.1. I'm going to link the clip below. If you're going to keep watching this clip, we're going to do it later. We're going to get 1.3 billion ticks. And there's just a lot of stuff to get into. So the first thing we did here, and we're also hopefully in the game. Disconnected, man. Rookie mistake. We're going to go back into the game. But I'll show you a bunch of tricks here in game as well. So the first thing we did, guys, is for speed runs, there is an option to take Emerald or Amethyst in your armor gems. And that's what I'm going to do here, basically, if I could log in. So there is multiple gems you can take in the armory. So you have Dexterity, which gives you about 2% crit chance. Already banned, guys. Unlucky. So there's Dexterity, that gives you about 2.2% crit chance per point. You can take Rubies, which gives you defense. Or you can take Amethyst, which gives you main stat. So it depends a lot what you want to do. In the speedruns recently, I'm at 58 seconds now for 100 runs. I mean, this was my fastest run. You don't really need the toughness from the rubies. So I recommended now going either with emeralds or with amethysts. And I like the emeralds a little bit more because there are several stats that you get from playing emeralds. And the crit chance, I mean, you also get armor, but the crit chance is the most important one. And what crit chance will do for you, it'll proc your Relentless Berserk easier. So you have a higher chance of triggering this lucky hit with a higher roll. Because you see here, if you crit, you get double Berserking here from your Relentless. So you definitely want to be critting ideally. And once you crit, you're going to get just a higher roll. You're going to get 4 seconds instead of 2 seconds, which is then multiplied by your duration. And the second thing is, if you're looking at the Wrath Glyph that we have in the current boards, this one here, you're also generating more fury when you crit with your skills. So I feel the Emerald will maybe slightly less DPS than Thrench Gems according to my calculation, but we finally managed to log in. So you guys can see here, my current crit chance in the game with those gems is, when I drink everything, is 94.5%, right? And we don't have any masterwork on our Amulet crit chance. So we have 94.5, and you see here this two crit gems here are about 4%, 4.5, 4.6% if I just remove these crit gems. So the dexterity is pretty cool to see. Obviously our life dropped to quite some lower value here, only 47k. But I think overall it's going to be pretty okay to have. And I'm going to show this to you here. So there's also a common misconception that I didn't answer in this FAQ. But a lot of people ask, why is my crit damage lower when I'm in town? So when you're logging into the game, so it's actually good that I see it, for the first time, you will see that your heavy-handed is not active. So right now, I basically have 2 dual-wield weapons equipped. And that obviously will not work with my heavy-handed. So if I just attack something with Whirlwind, then boom, now my heavy-handed is active. And these are the current stats here. I changed the ratio a little bit as well, we'll talk about that later. But that is also a common misconception that I see and something that I didn't answer in my latest FAQ. By the way, the last FAQ that I already did here, we're not going to talk about everything again. All these questions have already been answered in a previous video that I'm going to be linking in the description below. We're just going to be focusing on the new questions here. So yeah, with the crit gems, emeralds, I definitely think emeralds will be better than amethysts on your gear because you get crazy crit chance. And the crit chance also, guys, is a multiplier for your gushing wounds. So it's equal to the amount of crit chance is the chance that the multiplier is even happening. So you definitely want high crit chance, and this 94 is very reachable with the emerald gems. Then the next question is here, and which I changed in all the planners as well, is we now have lucky hit on our gloves. So we have even more vulnerable uptime. We have a lucky hit roll on the ring, and also here instead of main stand now, we rolled it to lucky hit. So those two combined, you guys can see here, we have 30%, and even the Barbarians can calculate this. And we have 50%, that means 80%. And then we're also looking at our Paragon board here, we have pressure points, so we have 100% chance on a lucky hit, which is happening every 5th Whirlwind tick, to trigger vulnerable. And this basically makes the target basically permanently vulnerable unless you get really, really, really unlucky. But most of the time, guys, the target is permanently vulnerable with these two changes. So lucky hit on the gloves, I think it's just a W for the entire build. The next one, and also a very common misconception, is here Berserk Duration. So a lot of people don't understand that Berserking, first of all, no matter which source it has, if you go in-game, you hover anything that gives you Berserking. You see here, Berserking gains 25 increased damage, 15 movement speed. This effect lasts up to 5 seconds. So there is no point of having more Berserk Duration if every source is already reaching 5 seconds. You cannot, no matter, like let's say you gain Berserking for 10 seconds, it doesn't even work because it's maximum 5 seconds. Unless you're using Unconstrained, and you're not using it. We are playing a Bleed Whirlwind build, Gushing Wounds, it's way better than Unconstrained. So your Berserking is a maximum of 5 seconds. So there's no point in stacking further Berserk Duration really on your weapons or something, because your Warcry gives you 4 seconds. And if you just divide 5 by 4, which is the maximum, you need 25 Berserk Duration to hit the cap with Warcry. But then there is, and what we talked about earlier, the Unrelenting here, Relentless. So this one, if you don't crit, it's only extending your Berserk by 2 seconds. So here, Berserking Duration makes a lot of sense. So for this one, you can divide 5 by 2, because 5 is the max. So you can have 250% Berserk Duration if you don't crit. So that also works. So Berserk Duration has a merit here for Relentless. But for your Warcry, you can't increase the duration. Base is 4 for Warcry, but you can't increase it further than 5 seconds. You can only increase the reprocking of it. Because again, it says it on the tooltip here, this effect lasts up to 5 seconds. Berserking has a max cap of 5, and only with Unconstrained can you get it to 10. But you don't really have to worry about that. This was just a common misconception. If you're following the planners, you have enough Berserk Duration in your Paragon, so you don't need any in your actual weapons or something. So you don't need to put Berserk Duration here. Chance to Dust Devil and size is way better. So just talking about the size again, guys, because I get this question again. 40% on one weapon, 40% on the other weapon, 20% on the aspect makes 100% total. We're going to talk about that a little more in the Polearm setup. Then we have the Berserking damage cap. So this is also, I don't understand, like this was also a common question. People don't understand how much Berserking damage they need. So even if this Paragon node says you have 30% X, I'll see if I can replicate this here. No. Okay, yes, I can. So you guys can see here, now I took off one of the Berserking rolls and it says 30% here. But what you need to do is you need to go in your stats and you need to check damage while Berserking. And this number here needs to be at 300%. Because what Blood Rage is doing is giving you 10% of your Berserking damage as multiplier on top of the additive. So it's double dipping. You get an additive bonus and you get a multiplicative bonus. But this 30% is rounding. So you guys can see here, I'm missing 5% right now. So I'm going to be missing the multiplier. 0.5% damage multiplicative is what I'm missing. So you definitely want to be taking this last point and you want as close as you can get to 300 Berserking damage. So I have 300.8 and this is perfect because I'm only 0.8 over the cap. This 0.8 is still additive damage, but it's not multiplicative. But you don't want 290 or something like that. You always want 300 exactly. 300% Berserking damage, guys. This is what you look for. And this is usually very easy reachable. We have one roll and then another roll here and then my Paragon boards, because I have actually a pretty low roll on my gloves here. If you have a higher roll, you can obviously get rid of these 2 points here or some of the Berserking points on the Ira board here. Right now I have Ira in another place, so it would take me additional stuff here to unlock. You see, I need to put 3 points here to get 2 Berserking, so I just put it up there. But in general, it's better to populate the Ira board if you need a lot of Berserking damage, rather than taking the blue nodes, because the Ira board also gives you 5 strength per 5.3 Berserking bonus, which is obviously better than 5%. And then one misconception again is about the Twister Glyph. At the moment, I removed Twister Glyph out of most of the current setups, and we are playing either Disemboweled or Executioner with the Polearm setup, which you're going to be talking about later. The Twister Glyph is still working. It's only half the Twister Glyph that is currently bugged and not working. So if you're checking the Twister Glyph again, there is a main and an additional bonus. The main bonus, which is the additive Twister, this one still works, it gives you quite some damage, but the 13% X, the second bonus, is not working. You can still play Twister, it will still increase your damage, but it will not increase the damage for every other skill. So it's only going to increase your Twister damage. It's not going to increase, you know, your Chirel's Might damage, for example, right? But the main thing still works. It's not completely useless. Only the secondary, the all damage multiplier is bugged, which makes the glyph significantly weaker. And in most setups, I don't recommend playing it. But if you're just starting out on your Barb and you don't have much additive, the Twister Glyph still gives you 400 additive, which is quite some damage. But in most setups, I don't recommend it. You can follow the planner here. There's new setups. We're going to talk about all of them in a bit. In fact, right now, we're going to talk about the setups. So there's many people that ask me about all kinds of different setups. And I don't want to make more planners because it already is quite a lot. So if you're just starting out, guys, you are playing the non-Uber version. This one is playing a Polearm now. We get into it in a little bit here in this video. But this is the starter version. And then the current version I recommend is Maze, Turael Speed, if you have a grandfather, and Uber Uniques. If you don't have a grandfather, but all the other Uber Uniques, you can also play the Polearm speed meta. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. There's also the advanced, like full DPS setup that we talked about with the Emerald. This is like for more advanced players to recommend. And there's also an Uber Boss Killer that I just min-maxed for DPS. It's actually using Groundstorm and Rumble and Earthquake and the Call of the Ancients just to min-max boss damage. This is what you can play if you want to kill Uber bosses. And then, okay, you can play like a Helltide build or some other stuff. But this is like the 4 main setups. So non-Uber, Maze Turael, Maze Advanced, Uber Killer, and Polearm. These are like the main setups. If you want to push, there's a build here for you. But Whirlwind is mainly a speed build. For push, I definitely recommend you playing Flay or Bash Barb. It's way better. They both did 150 plus, while Whirlwind, I think, is stuck at 140 at the moment. And it's not going to go much higher. Like the Flay is definitely a way better setup for pushing. And then there is also a lot of questions that reach me here about the Jans gloves. They look like this here. And they are pretty cool, especially if you're struggling with Berserking. However, I definitely prefer to have the movement speed from Ghostwalker in the speed setups, because people have been using this for the speed setups. But if you like Jans, you can use this. It's a very good choice still. You're just going to lose a little bit of movement speed, but you're going to get a little bit of more damage and you're going to get a little bit of more Berserking uptime. However, if you want to do really fast runs, like sub 1 minute or sub 70 seconds, I definitely recommend you go with Ghostwalker or play with the Momentum Elixir and not Holy Bolt to get the movement speed that you need. Because what Whirlwind does, it slows your movement speed. So you want about 240% movement speed to make up for the Whirlwind movement speed penalty. And the way you do that is usually you take movement speed on the boots, you take the secondary for tempering movement speed, you take the Ghostwalker movement speed. I mean, right now I don't have it because I'm not in a speed setup, but you take the Ghostwalker. You take movement speed in your Paragon here, 3 points in swiftness. You take movement speed in Rallying Cry, 30%, and you get movement speed from having permanent berserking, another 15%. That's going to give you 240% movement speed. And if you want more, you can also use an elixir of momentum. But, you know, if you don't have a greater affix or something. But usually, this 240 is sufficient enough. And you don't need Yanks and you don't need anything else for this. But you can play Yanks, it's a cool setup. Then people also ask me all the time about Leap setup or Charge Tybot's Will setup. I'm not going to make more planners, it's already enough. But you can play those setups I'm just a spin to win enjoyer. I like to spin, and whenever I'm leaping, I'm not spinning. Whenever I'm charging with Tybert's Will or something, I'm also not spinning. And when I'm not spinning, I feel like I'm not winning, and it's just lame. But leap can also be pretty fun, actually. Like, you have another mobility skill that allows you, you know, to pass a certain like rift levels. Like, you can leap to like over like certain bridges and stuff. It can definitely speed up the run, but it's very tryhard, and you can just, like, you know, spin and you can win, or you can play leap. It also helps you with your battle fever here, with your berserking uptime. It works, but I don't recommend it. I think there's the pure whirlwind setups are cooler, more fun to play, and also faster overall, on average. I think with leap you can actually do like if you have the best map, you can do some crazy leaps and you can get a faster time. But on average, I'm pretty confident that the non-leap setup is just going to be superior in terms of consistent clear times. Because I see a lot of people that leap and completely fuck up. Same for the charge, like, it would just be faster to just whirlwind, basically. Okay, then to the first big topic, and lots of questions have been asked about this, which is Grandfather versus Polearm. And I did some calculation. Obviously, there are some bugs and there are some double dipping mechanics, and there are like kinds of things, but I found out to be that the setups are relatively close, but actually the Polearm in certain situations is a little bit stronger, and obviously you also don't need a Grandfather. But this is assuming a best in slot Polearm that is probably looking something like this, just not bricked, right? So these are pretty expensive compared to a Grandfather, but the Grandfather is also hard to get. So if you have a GG Polearm, I encourage you, test out the Polearm setup, it's pretty cool. And DPS seems similar or even slightly stronger than on the Grandfather. But I've seen some calculations that don't take some stuff into consideration on Grandfather, because yeah, you get like an Executioner Glyph, but you're also losing something again. And when I initially did the calculation, I was not aware of a bug or an interaction with the mace expertise. So this is the first thing to know, guys. The mace expertise, if you're checking it out here, by the way, the icons are still bugged. Another bug here. Like, why is this all one-handers, man? It's a two-hander, what the hell? So on the two-handed mace, when you're playing this, it says you deal 15% X crit damage while berserking. But this one, guys, does not work with gushing wounds. So gushing wounds seems to only scale off your sheet crit chance. So it's only gonna scale the chance and the crit damage of your sheet. But if I'm using this mace, it doesn't increase. Even when I'm berserking here, you can see I'm berserking now. So I have a mace, I'm berserking. I should have this bonus, but I don't. Because it doesn't work. It does not increase the sheet, and hence, according to my testing as well, it does not increase your bleed damage. It will, however, increase your Tyrelled damage, and it will also increase your Twister damage. But it's not going to increase your bleeds, because those crit do not work for Berserk ripping. They're only multiplied with the gushing wounds, but since this doesn't work with gushing wounds, you're not getting this. So I hope that was understandable. You're only getting this 15x on your direct damage, but not on any of your bleed damage. But for example, on a Polearm, that works. So the Polearm has this 1.15x in the expertise over the mace. Again, this mace is still a little damage increase, but it's only for the direct damage, which is, depending on the build, we're talking about Whirlwind here, so it's probably only around 10-20% of your total damage. So this 15% X only turns out to be, you know, like a 3% damage increase or something, unfortunately, because it is not working with the bleeds. So the same goes for Wallop. Wallop only works for skills. I also retested that. And it's also only working for your direct damage. This is Wallop. So we could actually say it's 20% direct damage on Whirlwind roughly. So this could be like a 1.130, you see, and then the setups are really close again, but then it depends a lot on how much crit you get on a Polearm and stuff. So overall, I don't think there is a much difference between the Grandfather and the Polearm, and you should just play whatever you like. And they're very close to each other. It depends a bit also which aspect you get. So I made some assumptions here. Obviously on Polearm you get the expertise, you get more strength than on Grandfather, but on Grandfather you get more crit. I didn't even calculate this because you get this 108 or 160 all stats, while on a Polearm you would get, you know, if this was upgraded like this one, 350 strength and stuff. So you also lose some dex But yeah, I didn't like fully calculate this. It just seemed like very close. You get more crit, or you get another crit multiplier, because I calculated this one as 2, because you guys can see when I equip or unequip my grandfather, it gives me more than times 2. So you see here, 2,684, 2,684, we times this times 2. It should be 5,300 plus some implicit, but it's actually way more, even with the implicit. I'm getting like 300% more crit. And even if you subtract the 35 here times 2 times heavy-handed times 1.45, it would be times 2 times 1.45. It would only be 100. So I'm still getting 200 more sheet with grandfather. So it's giving you more than double of your crit. So that's going to be pretty important. It's also going to double your direct damage as well. So it's basically doubling all the stuff. And even giving you more than double crit damage. So that's like that's why I have 2.1 here, just for those who are wondering. And then, yeah, you have the other stuff here. You get extra crit. So what the Polearm will allow you to do, and I have this in my setup here, talk to some people. It will allow you to temper crit damage on your two-hander. You know, right now, guys, ideally you want to triple crit the chance of Dust Devils. But with a Polearm, you can roll another Dust Devil here on this Polearm if I were to equip this. So this one would also have crit chance for Dust Devils. A chance, not crit chance, chance to cast them twice. So with 50 and 50, you would get 100%, and you could fully masterwork the crit damage. And that actually gives you a lot of crit damage compared to what you have without it. So you get more crit damage here, and you get more crit damage here, and you get 100% chance very easily without having to triple crit. You still do the same with size, one roll here, one roll here. So you can fully masterwork the crit, and that would allow you to go for vulnerable on all the weapons. You guys can see we have vulnerable, 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 vulnerable. Right now the hemorrhage is still uncapped, so vulnerable very strong. And yeah, this gives you a bunch of more stats. And that's also one of the reasons why it is actually pretty close between those two setups. And obviously you get another aspect on a two-hander. And this one is fairly hard to calculate. It's probably best to assume this is a 1.2 multiplier. It depends. You get elements if you're doing speedruns. And you're getting the Dust Devils aspect on the two-hander. Or you can also take elements on the two-hander. And then if you calculate this, elements on the two-hander as a 1.3 average, you guys can see then the Polearm is quite a bit, well, quite a bit. It's like, if we divide these two numbers, it's like about 8% better than a grandfather in this scenario. But this is also assuming that you have a perfect Polearm. And you also, like, you're gonna lose some life and stuff because the grandfather, even without a greater affix, you guys can see the grandfather has about double life. So you're also gonna lose some willpower, some dex. So in the end, guys, I think the two setups are very, very close. On the very high end, if you have a best in slot Polearm, I think the Polearm actually has more DPS, but the grandfather has more quality of life. And a lot of people that compared grandfather versus Polearm were considering attacking with the grandfather, which you don't do anymore. And that's why in their calculation, they included another, I think it was a 1.1 divided by 0.9 or something, another 22% damage increase, because obviously if you were whirlwinding still with grandfather like we did in the, oh, it's actually 1.0, it's 11%. But if you were whirlwinding still with grandfather, you would lose another 11% damage, right? But we are not doing this. We play with grandfather, but we select the mace. And by the way, in the planner, guys, for those of you who were confused, in the planner, we also have the selection now. So here on the Polearm, we do it with Polearm, and with mace, down here you can see this little icon. You can change this. We're wielding with the mace. So just to put that out there, guys, it is not as clear that grandfather or Polearm is better. The answer is also here, it depends. If you have a grandfather and you have a good Polearm, I encourage you to try the Polearm, but I would not go out of my way to, I don't know, pay 8, 9 billion, whatever these are going for right now. You can let me know in the comments. Billion gold to then brick your Polearm. If you already have a grandfather, I think you can stick with it. And if you want to brick a couple Polearms to try, with the chance you'd have to redo a couple other rolls as well, that's also very good. I think actually very, very high-end, super optimized, the Polearm pulls ahead a bit. If you have a perfect Polearm with good rolls, you're going to have some more damage. But again, I did a lot of testing. And it's also going to be relevant later. Yeah, I'm going to link the clip below so you can watch it. So this is me just spinning on the target dummies here. So you see here level 100 target dummy in World Tier 4. And you guys can see this is also with the current mace setup. I didn't try fully with a Polearm, but math-wise, because I don't have a good one, because I bricked mine. But math-wise, and you guys can see here, we're doing about 1.3, 1.28. It's very hard to see. We're only watching this number here. So this is a 1,291,489,536. You guys can see, I think there's also a couple 1.3 numbers here. 1.2, 1.3, there was a 1.3, there 1.3 again. I think I even had 1.6 at some point. But it depends a lot. And on the target dummies, it's not really the most fair test. But if you want to see the clip, I'm going to link that below as well. And you can watch it. This was me with my mace setup. So with the current setup that I have. And also with the current ratio I have from crit to vulnerable. And we can talk about that one too. This is going to be the next big thing we're going to talk about. But first of all, again, if you have no Ubers, the Polearm is the way. That's for sure now. So I actually updated this one. So this one is using a Polearm now. I hope it is. Now it is using a Polearm. No Ubers, Polearm, and also Executioner in the Paragon board. Don't forget about this one. Yeah, we have Executioner already. So this one gives you another 1.1x basically. And we are dropping the Twister Glyph, guys, because the Twister Glyph is bugged. So I hope that helps. And, you know, if you have Ubers, then play whatever you like. They are very close to each other. I think Grandfather is a bit more quality of life. Polearm on the high end is a bit more damage. Play whatever you like. And there's also one cool trick that I want to show you real quick. So for that, there is a Transmog Trick. And then we're going to talk about the most controversial topic probably with the Vuln and crit duration. So you guys can see here, I'm attacking with my Grandfather now. So here I have a Grandfather equipped. So what you can do, guys, there is a trick to make your Polearm look like a sword. And I talked about this in my Flay video already. So there's basically a Transmog Trick that you can do. So you go to the armory and it will allow you to have the look of a sword but actually play a Polearm. So step 1, have your sword selected. Select any Transmog, confirm look. Boom. So you have the red sword now. And then now what you do, you have your Polearm in your inventory and now you drag your sword to your Polearm. Boom. So I did that now. And if I were to attack something now, so you see, now I'm whirlwinding with my Polearm and I don't have my sword equipped anymore. But it's still going to be the visual effect of the sword. It's, for my testing, it's only visual, man. I really hope you're not getting any bonuses because then this needs a hotfix. But this is just the cool stuff because a lot of people don't like the style of the Polearm. You guys can see I have a Polearm equipped, I have no more sword, and I'm running around here with my sword. And if I'm spinning with my weapon, with my sword, you see? Whirlwind, Polearm selected, but I'm spinning with a sword. Transmog. You get all the bonuses from the Polearm. You get the expertise from the Polearm, and you get all the stuff from the Polearm. So this is just a cool little trick if you want your Barb to look cool while he's spinning, because I think Polearm looks kind of lame, and the sword just looks much cooler. So if you want to be playing the non-Grandfather setup with a Polearm, this one is pretty cool. And I think it just makes the game cooler. This is also what those top Chinese Barbs have used. I was actually talking to many of them here and we were having like, some big discussion about things and a lot of it got lost in translation, I feel. But I think it was PXX here. That's the guy, I think, who did 4 Barbarian flays per second. And we were talking a lot with him about the next topic as well. And he was also using this mechanic here to make his Polearm that he used, he confirmed it, in his 155 clear look like a sword. So he was not playing a sword, he was playing a Polearm. So I hope that clarifies a couple things. And then last but not least, the biggest topic here. Optimal crit and vulnerable ratio. And there have been many videos and many discussions and I've heard all kinds of numbers, man. Everything from a 1-to-1 to like a 15-to-1 or something. Like all kinds of numbers from all kinds of different people. And again, the answer is it depends. Like no one is like clearly wrong and no one is clearly right, at least according to my testing. And you can let me know in the description, in the comments, what you think. But there's been a calculator made here from some Chinese players. I don't know all their names here, but probably there are some of the names right here. I was discussing it with those people as well. So PXX is one of them, and then this guy here, and we were having like quite a big like discussion about stuff. And I always love this guy. So you know, constructive criticism and also like helping to improve the Barbarian meta even further, right? Because we all like spin to win, we all like the Barbarian, and this is just so cool to see the community come together and, you know, some Barbarians shouting at each other with much passion, yes? I like that a lot. So they made this calculator here, and I'm gonna link to that in the description. You will need to make a copy to put in your own stats. But the reason why so many people get to different conclusions is, well, first of all, math is hard, and we are Barbarians. Barbarians don't have that much main stat. They don't have that much at the moment. And yeah, there's math is hard, man. I know, I've been there. And the answer is it depends on, first of all, your heavy-handed level. So this obviously heavy-handed, if you have it on the amulet or not, and which rank you have, impacts the result of your math. And also, are you playing Grandfather or not? And this one also impacts the result of your math. And also, you know, what is your current vulnerable and what is your current crit? And there is no perfect answer for this question. If somebody asks you, what is the right crit to vulnerable duration? The answer is always, it depends. It depends on your stats, it depends on your gear, it depends on the build you play as well. Because there are certain builds, and this build here, this calculator, as far as I know, was made for Flay. It's only looking at the bleed damage. It is not looking at any direct damage. You guys, I'm gonna go to the target dummies actually. So it's not looking at any of the direct damage. Like, you're getting direct damage from your Turel's Might in this particular Whirlwind build. You're getting direct damage from Turel's Might, and you're getting a bunch of direct damage from your Twisters. You can, it depends on your gear, but usually around 20%, 10 to 20% is coming from your direct damage, right? Like the yellow numbers, the crit numbers that you see, and all this kind of stuff. Like everything that's not Gushing Wound Bleed. The main damage is coming from Gushing Wound Bleed, but you still can't fully neglect a 10 to 20% of the direct damage. You guys can see here whenever I basically start spinning, here there is a bunch of damage numbers, and you guys can see here all these normal numbers here, like all the crit numbers. Like this is the direct damage, like 2 million, whatever, right? So that's the direct damage, and the other part is the bleed damage. So it only works when I'm berserking, obviously. So you see there's a bleed part and there's a direct part, right? And there's a lot of direct damage numbers. So that's the main difference also for this question. And here, he came actually to similar conclusion than me, because Flay is very different than the direct damage, because this is only bleed, and bleed is double dipping vulnerable damage. So you guys can see you have the bleed double dip with vulnerable. So that means it's applied twice, right? You apply the vulnerable for the direct hit, and then Berserk Ripping takes the base, right? It only takes the base. It doesn't take your crit. So if you're critting for, I don't know, 1 million, and there was half of that damage was from your crit damage, so 500 was the base, it's only going to take the 500,000, not the 1 million, and then transfer this into your bleed damage with gushing wounds. That is multiplied, right? So for all the direct damage, crit damage is applying on the direct damage for the first time, but then it is also applying to your bleed damage for the second time. For Flay, it doesn't happen, because Flay only has bleed damage. If you're looking at Flay as a skill, see here, Flay just deals bleed damage. Okay, I mean, there's 8% direct, but this is like neglectable. So this is mainly Flay damage. And vulnerable is always double dipping for the direct hit and also for the bleed. While crit, in terms of bleeds, is only dipping once with your gushing wounds. I hope that is understandable. It's rather complicated because it's evolving around double dipping, like applying the multiplier twice, and it's most likely a bug. And they're actually already addressing a lot of the double dipping here. They're capping hemorrhage in the next patch, and they're also fixing, let me see if I have this, I think it's down here. There is various bug fixes with double dipping. Fixed an issue where damage over time effects. This includes bleeds, burns, poison damage, shadow damage over time. Received a bonus from plus damage. They have not addressed vulnerable double dipping, but I'm pretty sure they will do this in the future, because plus % damage was also double dipping already. So vulnerable is double dipping for pure bleed builds or for all the bleed parts of your damage. And for the direct, only for the direct damage part is the crit double dipping with gushing wounds. So if you know this, you already see here in this calculator, so you put in grandfather, you put in your heavy-handed level when you copy this, and then you can put in your crit damage. And you guys can see here now, I put in, again, for pure bleed builds, I put in a 5-to-1 ratio with grandfather. And you guys can see here, if I put in 25 crit damage, I'm gaining here, this is my true damage gain, 3.5. And if I put in 20 vulnerable, and this is always the ratio, it's also 3.5. So the optimal ratio, when you're playing Flay or a pure bleed build, not for Whirlwind, for Flay, is 5-to-1. If you have grandfather and heavy-handed on rank 9. If you have it on rank 10, then the ratio shifts. If you don't have grandfather, the ratio shifts, right? Because it's multiplying your crit damage and giving it more value. So grandfather multiplying it by, I think, 2.1, and heavy-handed is multiplying it, if you have it on max level, it's 1.5. So just know this, for Flay only. Without grandfather, you guys can see if I remove grandfather, then the ratio shifts heavily towards vulnerable, right? So you guys can see here, 25 crit gives me only 1.7 because it's not double dipping with grandfather, and vulnerable gives me 3.5. So here, the optimal ratio is more what you heard in some videos, I think from, I'm not sure who made the video. There was a lot of people that made videos. It was a 1.66 to 1. This is without grandfather, only with bleed damage, only with Flay, no direct damage part. But this calculator here does not take direct damage into account at all. So for the Whirlwind Barb, you have, again, these two sources of direct damage, Turel's Might and the Twisters that also deal direct damage. Hence, they are double dipping with crit. The direct damage part is multiplied by your crit, and the resulting bleed is also multiplied by your crit with gushing wounds. But a Flay Barb, again, doesn't really crit on the direct damage because direct damage is not happening basically on Flay. And I hope that explains it at least a little bit better. You can test this calculator for yourself. So right now I did go a little bit down on my ratio. So currently here you guys can see in the game, if I drink my pots here, I'm playing 5,600 to 650. And I was able to get, and I'm gonna let this like play here for a second. I was able to get like roughly this results here. So we're gonna min-max this. So I'm just gonna let this play, but I'm also gonna link it in the description. This is very slow. We're only watching the bleeds right now. You guys can see here the direct damage ticks, and they are also ticking for, well, I don't even know. 2 million, 8 million, 7 million, 7 million, 8 million. So you guys can see here, we are doing some pretty significant damage still with our direct hits here. 24 million even. I don't even know what that is. That's probably the real Twisters here. But yeah, I'm just gonna like play this here real slow. This is like 25 million. You know, so this is like not no damage because this pops up, this 25, 20 million, 3 million, 5 million, depending on, I think the 3 and 7 million here is from the Turel's Might, and these 20 millions here that you see over here are happening from our from our Dust Devil aspect. So there's a bunch of different numbers here. And again, the main takeaway is, guys, the answer is it depends. And currently I'm playing about, let me see, this was my optimization now, 5,600 divided by 656, because I did not know that vulnerable damage is bugged and is in fact double dipping as well, same as crit damage for the direct damage part. So vulnerable is applied twice, crit damage is applied twice, but only for direct damage. And that actually makes vulnerable damage a bit stronger now and shifts the ratio a bit lower from 10 to 1. 10 to 1 is still a good ratio, especially if you're not scaling bleed as much. But if you want to focus more on bleeds, you might be going down to like 8 or maybe even 7. And for a Flay build, you want to go 5 to 1 or without grandfather, even 2 to 1 or 1.66 to 1. But you can check this out and put in these stats here. Again, only for bleed, not for direct. No one has built a calculator with direct. It's actually not pretty easy because you watch the damage formula here. I want to go ahead and say yes. Like, it's not an easy answer, let's say, guys. Yes, like the formula gets a little more complicated because there is a lot of factors playing into this formula. I hope this video gave you a bit better overview. And again, for next season, guys, all this doesn't really matter that much anymore, because for next season, they are capping the hemorrhage. And they are capping the hemorrhage to 45%. So that means to get 45%, I think you roughly need 350 vulnerable damage. So just like berserking damage, we can calculate this all we want. But for next patch, and the PTR starts tomorrow, you need 300 berserking damage and you need 350 vulnerable damage, and then you're done. The rest will all go into crit damage, because gushing wounds can just take all of our crit damage, and we will probably reach numbers here of when I crit, I already have like 6.5. You can probably reach 7,000 crit damage when we're going to be playing on the PTR, because we want to be shifting all of our vulnerable damage to crit damage, because again, hemorrhage is sadly getting capped. I'm not a big fan of these caps. I also think there is some pretty weird stuff in the patch here that is just capping the fun, in my opinion, like cooldown on teleport, and all the passives are being capped. I just feel like the fun is getting capped, right? But yeah, for now, guys, you can use the calculator. I hope this helped you. And on the PTR, just stack 350 Vuln, 300 Berserking, and you're done. End of discussion. And again, I really like that so many people in the community, in the Barb community, are testing and giving feedback, not taking anything at face value. Always do your own testing, guys. I always strongly encourage that. No one is perfect. And the game also, on top of no one being perfect, has so many bugs. Like, for example, the Twister Glyph. I didn't even know about this until like a week ago as well. And now the vulnerable is double dipping, and certain other effects are double dipping, and other things like mace expertise is not even working properly for what we are doing here. And we just need, the collective intelligence of the entire community to min-max, our class, the Barbarian, and also other classes to even newer heights. And I think it's really cool that people are coming together and just having a good time, man, spinning and winning, blasting video games, doing some, calculations together, and some other people, just throw on the build and just have fun with it. Like, either is fine, guys. So I really appreciate all the feedback and all the critical comments. Feel free to discuss more in the comments below. Again, English is not my first language, especially when we are explaining this. There definitely were some communication and some translation errors here, especially when I was discussing it here with some of the other people. And yeah, that was just it's just cool to like talk very passionately with all the other people and from different regions and in the community. Just a cool thing to see, guys. And I'm looking forward to do it some more on the PTR and in the future. Barb Nation, we are stronger together. Swarm intelligence, that's what we need. And we will take the Barb builds to the next level, my friends. Hope you enjoyed the overview, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think, and take care. GG. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like or a comment. I'm also live on Twitch almost every day, so come and say hi.